Finders does not necessarily mean keepers, and I'm going to tell you what I mean. Many people will think that if you find something out on the street that you can just pick it up, keep it, and it's yours forever. But that's not actually the case, and neither is it the case that if something is delivered to you in error, that you can just keep it and not return it. Each of these may amount to an offence of theft. Let me give you a couple of stories to explain. First of all, there was a lady that went to a cash machine and attempted to withdraw £300 from the cash machine, only to be dispensed £30,000 because the machine just kept spitting out the money. She took the money, took it home. She didn't report it, and she formed the intention, either during the dispense of the money or shortly afterwards, to keep that money, which by any level of test of dishonesty would be dishonest. So unsurprisingly, she was then prosecuted for the theft of the money because ultimately it belonged to the bank. Also, another story I found whilst editing this one. Another couple was also given suspended sentences because they realised that even though they were overdrawn by more than £1,000 at the bank, if they went to the cash machine to withdraw money, it would still give them the money but not show up on their bank statement. They continued to do this until they withdrawn over £61,000. The bank had installed CCTV cameras because they believed that the men that were putting the money in the machine, who worked for the bank, were taking the money. But in fact, they found this couple were going back again and again and then realised and reported all the information, and they too got prosecuted. Now, there is a test that should be applied to each of these scenarios, but I'm going to come back to that later. But first of all, one more story as to why you should be a little bit cautious about just keeping something that you find. This is actually a story from a friend of mine many years ago who sadly got beaten up, and I'll tell you why. He went into a local supermarket without naming names and went to the bathroom. He found a roll of used notes, quite a substantial amount of cash. He brought it out, told me about it. My first instinct was, well, I think you should have left it there. Clearly, it hasn't been just dropped by accident. It was on the side in the bathroom. Or alternatively, you should report it to the police station. But my preference would probably be to leave it there, because ultimately it turns out, as you might well have guessed, that it was left as a money drop for an illegal trade of some kind or another. Obviously, someone had left it in a certain place within the bathroom, intending for it to be payment for something presumably illicit that someone else was going to pick up later. Sure enough, whoever it was that either left the money or was going to collect the illicit goods followed my friend later on and beat him up because he'd taken the money. So let that be a lesson to you. If you find a roll of notes that's sitting somewhere where it really shouldn't be, approach it with a little bit of caution. Likewise, if you receive something in the post that is addressed to someone else and is clearly not intended for you, and there's a returns label on the box, whilst you don't have to go to any extraordinary measures to, for example, pay to send it back, you would have to make it available for the ultimate owner to collect it or arrange for it to be collected, because ultimately it doesn't belong to you. And with reasonable diligence, you can find out who this belongs to, particularly if there's a website address on there or just some quick information that would allow you to find out who it belongs to. Equally, if it's addressed to a neighbour and they've simply got the house address wrong or it's just been misdelivered to the wrong address, likewise, you should be taking reasonable steps to get it to the right person. The same applies if you find a wallet in the street and it's full of cash and belongings and things like that. If there is anything in the wallet, which is quite likely, which with reasonable diligence you can find out who this belongs to, such as a bank card which has got the name of a bank and the name of the person, you could therefore contact the bank quite easily and get this returned to its rightful owner. But if you don't want to do that, you could call the police, they will collect it from you and they will return it to its rightful owner, carrying out such steps. And all of this is because the definition of theft is quite straightforward. It is the dishonest appropriation of property belonging to another with the intention to permanently deprive that person of it. And remember that the test for dishonesty has recently been changed after 35 years of being pretty much set in stone. It used to be a twofold test whereby if the defendant thought it was dishonest and a reasonable member of society thought it was dishonest, then it would be considered dishonest. This has been turned pretty much on its head by the case of Ivy and Genting Casinos just recently in 2017. Now it is much more of an objective test whereby if an ordinary reasonable person from an objective standpoint believes that the conduct was dishonest, then it's going to be deemed to be dishonest. So if an ordinary reasonable person thought it's dishonest to pick up a wallet and just keep it for yourself, even though with reasonable diligence you could get it back to the original owner, then this is going to be dishonest. So if it's dishonest appropriation of property that belongs to someone else and you have the intention to permanently deprive them of it, that might amount to theft. And theft, of course, is a dishonesty offence which can have serious repercussions to you, giving you a serious criminal record. So be careful out there. Please like this video, share it with somebody, make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching.